Hey guys, what's up? I'm Jody with Board Game Perspective. So today we're taking a look at the second game in the West Kingdom Trilogy series, which is Paladins of the West Kingdom, sent to us by Renegade Game Studios. This game plays 1 to 4 players. And in this game, you're going to be gathering workers from the city to defend against enemies, and also you're going to build fortifications and spread faith throughout the land. But thankfully, you are not going to be alone. The king is going to be sending his finest knights to help you. So let's see how this game is played. So this game is played over 7 rounds. In each round, you're going to select a paladin that you have to assist you for that round. And then each player is going to collect the workers and take turns back and forth where you take a single action on your turn. And once everyone has passed for their turn, then that is the end of the round and you proceed to the next round. And of course, if it's the last round, then you proceed to scoring. Alright, so there's a lot of pieces to this game, so let's show you how to set it up. So you're going to put these 2 long pieces together, and that's the main game board there. And then all the different types of cards, you're going to shuffle them, and then you're going to have different piles of cards over different places. So you're going to have the townsfolk cards over here, and you're going to place out 5 of these like so. You'll have wall cards here, debt cards here with the unpaid side face up. You'll have suspicion cards here, and the outsider cards over here, and placing out 6 like so. Then you're going to randomly place 3 of the King's Order cards, which are the red ones. And then these will be King's Favor cards, which you will randomly place. Then you got the Tavern cards down here. And then you'll put out amount of silver here in the tax supply, depending on the player count. So on the board it shows you, so we're setting this up for a 2-player game, so I have 5 silver here. And then you'll have in supply all of the different colors of workers, and then also the silver and provisions. Next, each player is going to grab their player board and grab from the supply a bunch of different things where you're going to be filling in these different spots on your board. So first, you're going to get all these workshops and fill in all these boxes here with your workshops. You're going to do the same thing for monks, like so. And then the same thing for outposts. There are spots here where you place the outposts. And then same thing for jars down here. And then the jars are going to be in the same number pattern. So 1, 3, 5, 7, 8, 9. And then you're going to place the 3 attribute markers on 0. And each player starts with 1 provision, 3 silver. And each player also has the 12 paladin cards. Now you're going to look through the paladin cards and choose the ones that match the background that matches your background right here. Now, you're going to randomly choose the start player. So for this example, this player will be the start player and receive this marker. And then in reverse turn order, each player is going to grab 1 townsfolk up here from the main board. Let's see. So let's just say this player wants to take this one. Now, for this setup part, there is no cost to take any of these cards. Now, there's also some cards that have a lightning bolt up in this region right here. If there is a lightning bolt, then you will immediately take that benefit. And then you're going to place this card in your play area, and this will be a benefit you have for the rest of the game. So the other player is going to choose a card. So let's say the other player wants to pick this one. And after that, you're going to slide all of the cards down once everyone has chosen a townsfolk card, and then you're going to fill it back up. So let's go over the round structure. So at the beginning of the round, you're going to pass the start player marker to the next player in clockwise order, which is this, but this player that we showed prior is going to be the start player. And then you're going to reveal any King's Order or favor cards depending on the round. So this symbol up in here shows you which round. So we got 7 rounds here. So for the first round, I'm going to flip over this King's order card. Now, these 3 King's Order cards are ways you can get points at the end of the game, and you can see that notated here by these little yellow flags. So if you were to complete this goal by the end of the game, you would get 4 victory points. The green ones are more of places, additional action spaces. So if you place a worker here, you can take its benefit. So you'll just flip over for each round, and I will note that for round 3, you're actually going to flip over both of these cards. The next step is to reveal these tavern cards here, and you're going to reveal the number of players plus 1. So this is a 2-player game, so I'm going to reveal 3 of these tavern cards. Next, each player is going to grab their paladin pile in their play area, take the top 3 cards, and then you are going to choose which one you want to use for the current round, where you will place that one face down. Let's say I want to use this one for the current round. I'll place that face down right there on my board. And then you also are going to place one on top of your draw pile and one on the bottom. So let's say I put this one on the top of my draw pile, so that means I could potentially choose that card for the next round. And then this will go on the bottom, and that won't be able to be used for a while. So these paladin cards are going to help you out for the round. So each paladin has different abilities. So this one here says absolving costs no silver. So whenever you take that the action of absolving, it's going to cost obviously no silver. And then you are going to be receiving those workers notated here. And then these are temporary attribute boosts. After everyone has chosen their paladin card, then starting with the first player, they will reveal which paladin card they had chosen and receive the 2 workers notated at the top. So this player receives these workers and adds them to their supply. And then they will also choose one of these tavern cards here. Let's say this player wants to take this one. So you're going to turn this like that and grab those 4 workers, so 2 greens, 1 red, and 1 blue, and add them also to your supply. Once all players have selected their paladins and received their workers, then you will start taking your actions, and you will take actions back and forth until everyone has passed, and that will trigger the next round. So players are going to take actions by placing 1 or more workers from their personal supplies onto either their player boards or any of the revealed king's favor cards from the main board. Now the actions on the left side of the player board are focused on engine building and resource gathering, while the actions on the right side of the player board are focused on scoring and increasing attributes. Now there's a few rules on with placing your workers onto transparent and different colored locations. So a transparent can be any color that you want to place out there. Now, purples are considered wild, so they can go on transparent and any other colors as well. And obviously, anything that shows the color, that means you have to place that color of a worker on that spot. Alright, so there's a lot of different actions, so let's start going over them all in detail. So first, let's go over develop right here on the board. So in order to do this, you have to place 2 workers out here of any color. So let's say this player chooses to place 2 of these green workers out on the board. And then to take this action, it costs 4 silver. So they would have to turn 4 silver in to the supply. And what you're going to do now is take one of these workshops from the leftmost space, and you're going to put it on a spot on the right side of your player board. And you'll see there's a bunch of different spots with white dotted lines. That's where you can place these workshops. So let's say I place this workshop right here. So what that means is now to take this action, I only have to place these 2 workers here instead of the original 3. And if you see on the spot where I had removed the workshop, this shows you will gain a worker. So I will gain this white worker from the supply and add it to my personal supply. Next up is recruiting. Now this is an option that you can take where you can either just put 1 to take this benefit or 2 to take this benefit. So if I just were to place 1 worker here, this would allow me to discard a townsfolk card for some benefits. Now let's say on my turn I place both of these workers, then that means I can recruit a townsfolk card. Now it's important to note that if you place a single worker on one turn, so like that, you can't place a second worker on a future turn here. You must decide on that turn to place either one or both workers on a single action. So if you had just placed one worker on the recruit action like we were just showing, then, so like I said, you can discard one of these townsfolk cards, oops, sorry about that, to get a benefit. Now, depending on which townsfolk you choose, you might have to pay silver. Or if you're up here, you can pay silver or take a debt card. Now, let's just say, since we don't have any money right now, let's just say we're going to take this one because there is no cost. So I could discard this card and take this benefit in the upper right hand corner. So this would give me another white worker and one provision. Now if you had placed two workers, then you can recruit one of these townsfolk cards. So let's do this example again. So instead of, you're going to ignore this upper right hand benefit for this, but you're going to be dealing with the bottom part. So this one doesn't cost anything. So this player is going to add this to their other townsfolk card that they had gotten in the beginning, and you're going to leave these face up because these are going to give you benefits throughout the game. Now, like I mentioned earlier, if there happens to be a lightning bolt, which there is on this card, then you're going to take that effect. So this lightning bolt gives us one provision immediately, and then on future turns we will have these benefits. So for example, this townsfolk card right here, this means that whenever we place out an outpost, we will grab a silver from the tax supply. So there's different benefits that you will be able to get throughout the game. Next up, let's go over these areas of hunt and trade. There's similar concepts here. So to do the hunt option, you can place one worker of any color there. So let's put this worker here. And that would give you one provision from the supply that you would add to your personal play area. Now, if you had wanted to get more provisions, you could have placed both workers out here, and you would take 3 provisions from the supply. Now, just like I had mentioned earlier for another action, you have to decide this turn if you want to take one or both. So, say I had just taken this one action spot right here. On a future action, I could not place a worker here to take this benefit. It has to be all on one turn. And the same goes for this trade area. So if I place one worker out here, I can take 1 silver. If I place both out there on one turn, I can get 3. Now let's go over the prey action. So you would need a black worker to take this action, and it costs 2 silver. And what this does is it lets you remove workers from another location. So for instance, we have this garrison action location that is filled up. So I place my worker and paid, so I can remove all workers from one location. So that's there. These will get returned to the main supply. And then what that does is that allows you to potentially put more workers here on the same round. Now let's go over conspire. So you can place any worker there. So let's just place this guy here. And then that means you can get a criminal, which is the purple workers from the supply, and add it to your play area because purples are wild. Now anytime you get a purple worker, then you have to grab a suspicion card from over here, and then you're going to reveal it, and it shows 2 red silver coins. So whenever it shows as red, that means you have to grab these coins from the tax supply and not the other main supply of silver. So we would grab 2 silver from this tax supply, add it to our personal play area, and now this gets added to right here where we keep our suspicion cards. Now we're moving over to the right side of the board, starting with this commission action right here. So these are monks. Now, in order to go here, you're going to have to place all three of these workers. So 1 green, 1 of any color, and 1 black. And then you're going to deal with the leftmost monk here. Now, if you look at the top, so right at the top of these monks, there is a symbol for provision. So the first 3 monks that you're going to do are going to cost you 1 provision, and then it's going to move up toward having more provisions the further you go. And if you also look at the bottom, so the further you get at the end of the game, you're also going to get some victory points. So if I had all these monks placed out, I would get 2 victory points, and then so on. It's also important to note that on the right side of the board, we're dealing with a lot of attributes as well. So you're going to have an attribute to the left of the action tile and to the right. Now, the required attribute is indicated on the left side of each actions banner, while the rewarded attribute is on the right side. So we placed our 3 workers here, and we're gonna place out this first monk, but we had to pay 1 provision, so we pay that to the supply. And then you'll see here that this shows an influence attribute. So what that means is you immediately increase your influence attribute up 1 spot. So like that. And that's what this means right here on the right side, your rewarded influence, which is what we just did here. Now let's look at the left side, so the cost potentially to place out things. So we're going to be placing out the monk out onto the main board, which I'll show you in a second. But first we need to see the total faith we have. So if we look over here, our faith marker, which is the black one, is on 0, but our paladin gives us a temporary boost of an attribute, so we have 1 faith. So we'll be placing out your monks and outposts on these different locations, but there are different limits. So for instance, we had 1 faith, so we look down here and we can see these black faith attribute symbols on these different areas. Now, so here the cost would be 0 faith. So we have 1, so we could place a monk in here. But the next one has a cost of 2 faith, which we do not have because we only have 1. So I would have to place my monk out on one of these spots here. Now, it's also important to note that depending on your player count, that shows you how many spots are available. So in this 2-player game, I could only place a monk here or here, because this shows for a 3-player game and a 4-player game. So whenever you place your monk out here, so let's say I place the monk there, I would immediately get 2 silver from the supply. So next up, let's look at the fortify action. So this requires 3 meeples here, so 1 blue, 1 of any color, and 1 green. Now, this is going to be requiring your influence, and then you will get as a reward strength. Now, what you're going to do is once you place your meeples out there, you are going to have to pay a provision or multiple depending on where you are on those wall tracks. You're going to be placing your wall cards out here, starting with the left and moving this way. So for here, I would have to pay 1 provision in order to place a card there. This cost is 0 influence, which if we look over here, I have 1 influence, so I'm fine. So technically I could have placed 1 there or here after 1 has already been placed there. So I paid my cost, placed the meeples, so then I draw a wall card from the main board, and then I see what my rewards are. So I immediately get 1 white meeple. This is going to give me 1 victory point at the end of the game. And then I would also increase my strength by 1 on my player board. And then this just goes right here. And then you will be building your wall out this way. Alright, so now we're looking at the garrison action here. Requires 1 blue meeple, 1 of any color, and then 1 red one. And so this is going to require your strength. And you will get as a reward, you will get faith. So what you're going to do is we're going to be placing out these outposts here, starting with the leftmost. Now, if you look at on the tops here, there's different requirements, or costs, I should say, in provision. So the first 3 are going to cost 1 provision, and once you get over here, it's going to be 2 and 3. So we placed our workers out there. So then we would have to pay 1 provision to the supply, and to place out this outpost. And then we immediately get 1 faith, so I would move up my faith attribute marker on my player board. So just like the monks here that we already placed out, we're going to be placing out the outposts, and there's different areas. And just like the monks, there are limits. So depending on your strength for doing the garrison action. So you have to have 1 strength to go here, 3 strength to go here, 5 here, and so on. And just like the monk, there are the different player counts spots as well. Now for what we have for the garrison for strength, we had our paladin card, which showed us, that gave us a temporary boost in 3 strength. And then we already had 1 on our player board, so that gives us a total of 4 strength. So we could place an outpost here or in here, but we could not place it in here because 5 is greater than 4. So let's say we want to place this outpost right here, and that's, if I place it here, that will give us 1 green worker to our personal supply. Now there's a bunch of other things that you can do on these boards. You got discarding suspicion cards, you got getting more meeples, removing meeples from a location so you could place more workers there, coins, paying off a debt. So there's a bunch of different things you can do placing outposts and monks out here. Now we're taking a look at the absolve action. So this requires 3 workers, a black, 1 of any color, and a blue worker. And this is going to require influence, and then you will get, as a reward, you will get faith. So look down here at the jars. This is for the absolve action. You can also see there is a cost of silver depending on which jar you're placing. You always have to start with the leftmost. So if we're placing this one, it costs 1. If we're placing one out that's all the way down to here, then it costs 3 silver. So for this example, we're going to start with the first one because we have to. So it's going to cost 1 silver, which we pay to the supply. And then if you see the numbers on these jars, this means you have to have that amount of influence on your personal attribute track in order to even place out that jar. So to start here, it's 0. So if we look at our attribute track over here, we see that our influence is on the space of 1. So we can obviously build that because it's 0. If this had already been built, then we would have been able to do this one because we have influence of 1. So we just are doing this example, so we place out this 0 jar. We would immediately get 1 faith, which we move up on our track. And then what you're going to do is you are going to place this jar into an available spot over here to get a reward. So there are things like paying off a debt card, discarding a suspicion card, getting workers, and so on. So, but let's just go here where we can get 2 provisions. So I'm going to place my jar there. I take my 2 provisions. And then this symbol means you can always also discard a suspicion card, which we have 1, so I will go ahead and remove it. Now we're going to deal with the attack action here, which requires a green worker, 1 of any color, and then a red worker. Now this is going to require certain levels of strength, but you will gain influence. In order to attack an outsider, players must have an equal or greater amount of strength, which I'll show you on the main board in a second. And for every 2 strength that you lack, players may spend 1 silver to the supply to make an attack. So let's see how much strength we currently have. So we have 1 from our attribute marker, and then 3 for this temporary boost. We have a total of 4 strength. So which outsiders you can attack are determined by your strength. And we already determined that we have 4 strength. So the symbols here show you what areas you can potentially get. So this has 1 requirement, which we can do. This one has 3 strength needed. We have 4, so we can do that. However, this one has 5, so we don't quite have it yet. But remember, as I had mentioned, you can pay 1 silver to increase it by 2 more. So if I did pay a silver, that would give us 6. So we could technically have done that, but I'm not going to do that. So whenever you're attacking an outsider, you're going to be focused on the top part of the card on these upper right hand corners. So let's say I just want to attack this one here. So what I'm going to do is I will take this card. I will immediately gain an influence, which I will just move up my score tracker 1. And then I will also get 2 provisions immediately. And then after you gain your rewards, Then you're going to add this to your play area face down. Now we're doing convert right here. So this requires a red worker, one of any color, and then a black worker. And this is going to require certain levels of faith that you might have, and you will gain strength. So you're going to be converting outsider cards, and you're going to be placing them at the bottom of your board on these locations here. And so there might be some cost associated with that. The first card you put here, there is no cost, but then you have to pay 1 silver, 2, and then so on. So let's see how much faith we have. We're on the 2 spot. So we have 2, and then we have the temporary faith of 1. So we have a total of 3 faith. So similar concepts here. This determines what spots we can choose from. So we have 3 faith. So I could choose from here or here, but not here. So let's just pick this one. For converting, you're going to be concerned with the bottom parts of the cards. So, and typically these are going to be like in-game scoring. So for instance, 1 point for every 2 jars that I have done. And also look for the lightning bolt because that's an instant effect that you will get. So I will immediately move my strength up 1. And then you're going to take this outsider card and put it in the next spot available. Now I just want to mention again, whenever you get a criminal, a purple worker, then you always have to pick a suspicion card. And what you're going to do is flip it over. And remember, whenever you see a red coin, that means you have to take that money from the tax supply and not the main supply. And then you would add this to your player board in the upper right hand corner. So that would mean that card I took, I'd have to take 2 from the tax supply. Now, in the case where a player needs to take more silver than there is available in the tax supply, you'll take the rest from the main silver supply. So for instance, this player just had to take a suspicion card. They need to take 2 from the tax supply, so there's only 1. So they would take this one and then 1 from the supply. Now, anytime the last silver coin is taken from the tax supply, an inquisition occurs. Now at this point, the player or players with the most suspicion immediately gain 1 debt card. And this is the Inquisition symbol on the board. And this is in reference to the Inquisition. So if we have 1 or more players with the most suspicion, they will gain a debt card. Now if no players have suspicion, then no debts are collected. And each player that gains a debt from Inquisition also returns half of their suspicion to the suspicion discard pile. So in this example, this player has 2 suspicion cards and the other player has none. So the other player will not collect a debt card, but this player will since they had the most. And of course, whenever you collect debt cards, you keep them with the unpaid side up. This is the paid side and this is the unpaid side. And you add it to your play area. And because this player has 2, they discard half. And that gets put to the discard pile and they still keep 1 here. Now once debts have been collected and suspicion cards discarded, then you have to refill the tax supply based off the player count, in which case we have 2 players, so we would put 5 in the tax supply again. So once a player has no more workers available to take an action, or they decide to not take any further actions, they must pass. And at this point, they will clear all the workers from their player board and return them to the main supply. So remove all their workers and return them. And if they happen to have any remaining in their supply, players may carry up to 3 workers into the next round. So this player had 2 left over and they can carry them for the next round. And once all players have passed, you're going to follow the refresh steps. And if this happened to have been the 7th round, then the game will be over and scoring takes place. So to refresh, if there is a townsfolk card in the rightmost space, then you'll discard it, but there isn't one here. So then everything gets shifted down like this, and a new one comes out. Same concept here with the outsider cards. If there is a card in the leftmost space, which there is, this gets discarded, and then all cards get moved down, and then any empty spots get refilled with a new outsider card. And then you'll take all of the used tavern cards from that round and discard them to the side. So if you finish up that last round, then you're going to proceed to scoring. Now, there's a lot of different ways you can score points, so let's just go over it really briefly here. So first are your attribute tracks here. So if I had one of my markers all the way up here, I would have scored 20 points for that. So basically you get points for wherever those markers are. And then you get points if you were to develop a certain amount of these buildings. So if I developed all of those built workshops, then I would get 6 points. And then you'll figure out your points from your debt cards, whether it's unpaid or paid. So this player has an unpaid debt card, so it would be -3 points. However, if it had been paid, then it would be 1 victory point. And then next, you'll get 1 victory point for every set of 3 silver or provision that you have. So we've got 3, let's see, there's a set of 3, that's 1, 2, 3, so we get 3 victory points for that there. Now, if we have 5 or more commissions built, so then we would get victory points. So if we had all these monks out, then we would score 2 victory points. Next up, you're going to do the fortifications, so your wall. So depending how many you built, you could potentially get some victory points. So if I had built my wall all the way across here to this spot here, I would have gotten 6 victory points. And you also need to look out for on the actual wall itself, there might be victory points like this. Now for this garrison area, if 5 or more outposts have been built, then you would score victory points based on how many you built. So I would get 2 for that. And also down here for Absolve, if you were to build the jars all the way up to here, then you would get victory points as well. And if you had any outsider cards that you had converted down at the bottom of your board, then you're going to look at those game end objectives and score them. So for instance, this one down here was a victory point per every 2 jars that, or 2 Absolve actions I would have taken. So let's just say I had these 2 at the end of the game, so I would get 1 victory point for this card. And then lastly, you can get victory points from these King's Order cards over here. Remember, these are the first 3 cards with the red backgrounds that get flipped over. These can give you either 4, 6, or 8 victory points if you complete them. So for instance, this one right here, this is if 5 outposts have been placed out on the main board, and let's say this player had placed these 5 out there, then they would get those points. And once everyone has tallied up all their points, then of course the player with the most points is the winner. So there you have it. That's Paladins of the West Kingdom. So go ahead and leave some comments down below if you have any questions about this game and any thoughts you might have. And if you have played the first of the game in the trilogy or the last one, go ahead and let us know which one's your favorite. And as always, if you want to help us out, go ahead and click that subscribe button and like this video. And until next time, guys, thanks for watching.